Now, how much did corporate lobbying lead to the confirmation of some of Donald Trump's cabinet picks? Well, it turns out they had a heavy influence in deciding whether or not these specific nominees would be confirmed by the Senate. Now, according to The Intercept, there was a well-connected corporate lobbyists, a group of corporate lobbyists, one of them from Koch Industries and other large corporations, that use their power and their money, essentially, to make sure that Congress approved Donald Trump's team, his cabinet. Now, according to filings, Koch Industries had directly lobbied to help confirm EPA head Scott Pruitt to that position. Now, Scott Pruitt is, of course, a climate denier. He denies a lot of the science that has actually shown that climate change is happening, and a large percentage of it is man-made. So, obviously, there are a lot of interests that are very interested in making sure that we don't do anything about climate change whatsoever. Now, these interests are, of course, fossil fuel companies. Namely, one of them is the Koch Industries. Now, the firm's latest disclosure reports that its in-house lobbying team from Koch Industries spent $3.1 million to influence lawmakers over the first 3 months of the year on a variety of issues affecting its bottom line, including the EPA's Clean Power Rule on carbon emissions, which again would have reduced emissions from coal-fired power plants. Now, this would also affect carbon pricing, the Clean Air Act, and nominations for various positions at the Department of Energy, which of course deals with different issues involving the climate. How we get energy, how much, where do we get it from, how much do we invest in solar energy and wind power, etc. So that obviously has an impact on energy policy in America. Now, other groups with a vested stake in the administration's agenda also disclosed that they had lobbied senators to confirm Trump's nominees. So we're going to all the different corporate industries that have lobbied to make sure that Trump gets his picks. Now, the other another one is the American Apparel and Footwear Association. Now, that is a trade group that lobbies largely on trade and labor standards on behalf of clothing manufacturers and retailers. Now, they lobbied in support of, and this is unsurprising, Andrew Pudster. Now, Andrew Pudster was, of course, one of Trump's picks who was very anti-union. He was very anti-worker, meaning that, of course, he's going to vote against a worker. Not good. But, of course, these industry lobbyists are like, yes, we love Andrew Pudster. We know he's going to crush workers into the dirt. So, there you go. We want this guy. Now, it turns out that he did not get that pick. Of course, the Senate had a lot of issues with that. Apparently, they didn't get bought off enough. But this association, when Pudster was out, then threw in their support for replacement nominee Alexander Acosta. Now, the group's filing showed that it spent $176,000 on advocacy in the beginning of the year, though it did not specify how much of the lobbying total was spent on confirmation efforts. Quote, Mr. Pudster has seen firsthand the impact of burdensome regulations promulgated by the previous administration, and he has seen both the negative impacts and unintended consequences they have on employers and employees alike. And this is from a letter from a group of business interests, including the AAFA, writing in a letter to the Senate. So, another one is the National Roofing Contractors Association. Now, they also lobbied in support of Trump's labor nominees. The NRCA is a major construction trade group that is, of course, against new Labor Department rules that require corporations to disclose consultants and law firms hired to influence efforts by workers to engage in labor organizing. So, again, this is another way to crush unions, crush labor. Because how dare workers have a say in their workplaces? Oh, we don't want that. Oh, that means you're going to ask for higher wages. Buh. Oh, benefits? Buh. We don't want any of that. We don't want you guys asking for rights. No. Corporations should have all the rights to crush you and pay you as little as humanly possible. Okay, well, that's what that's all about. Now, another group of lobbyists, another industry, comes from Nestle. Now, Nestle has disclosed lobbying on food safety issues. Oh, great. So now they're basically saying, hey, we want to relax food safety standards. Why? So we can make an extra buck. Who cares if some of our stuff ends up hurting people, harming people, or getting recalled? We don't care. We're going to make some extra money. Now, again, they lobbied in favor of the nomination of someone named Sonny Perdue. Now, Perdue is Trump's pick to lead the Department of Agriculture. Look, I got to admit, I don't know a whole lot about Sonny Perdue, but the fact that Nestle is lobbying so vociferously in favor of him, well, that's a red flag. That's an issue. So, okay. Now, let's go to another area in which has seen a lot of lobbying, and that is the only union that Republicans seem to support, and that is the police union. Now, this is New York City's Police Sergeants Union, and a file listing many issues before the legislatures this year had noted that it had worked for the confirmation of Jeff Sessions as Attorney General. Oh, look, the police in favor of Jeff Sessions. Big surprise. Ed Mullen, president of the union, wrote to Judiciary Committee members to endorse Sessions as, quote, a man of unquestionable integrity, devoted to the rule of law and the best interests of our nation. Now, let me remind you who Jeff Sessions is. He's somebody who not only has said some very questionable racist things, he's also very anti-marijuana. In fact, this guy is one of the guys who wants to continue the drug war and also continue to militarize the police. Now, the filing shows that the union also happened to agree with at least one of those. They lobbied for the bills to expedite the deportation of alleged gang members, okay, and to repeal President Barack Obama's order limiting the transfer of military equipment to local police departments. So, Obama said, okay, no more Bearcats for you. No more MRAPs, okay? You don't need that. You don't need mine-resistant vehicles while trying to go after, and police. You don't need any of that stuff. Why are we giving you military-grade weapons? I actually agreed with that position and said, yes, let's get rid of those. Let's get those off the streets. We're not in Fallujah, okay? We don't need that shit. Now, of course, the police are like, no, don't take away our toys. We love our intimidating vehicles. We love our military surplus stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to go with somebody that loves militarizing the police, that loves so-called law and order. And that would be Jeff Sessions. So, look, this is the lobbying that's out in the open. We can see it. We can track it. It's pretty easy to find out who they are and what they support. Now, there's other lobbying that and other groups that The Intercept explains that played a little bit more of a subtle role. Now, this is the Council of Institutional Investors. Now, this is a trade group that represents pension funds. Now, they disclosed that their lobbyists had drafted questions for senators to ask during the confirmation hearing of Jay Clayton. The nominee led the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, the confirmation of Pruitt, arguably, as they write, the most controversial Trump nominee, attracted the most direct support from industry groups. The American Energy Alliance, an advocacy group founded by former Koch Industries lobbyist Tom Pyle, issued a letter in support of Pruitt, along with other Koch-backed conservative nonprofits. American Rising Squared, a political research outfit that has harassed environmental activists, formed a special website, now deleted, to respond to criticism of Pruitt and his record. So there are the connections, of course, with Koch Industries and, of course, allied groups allied with them to support Scott Pruitt. So look, there's a lot of your support, your lobbying coming from big business, from big corporations and special interests going into who gets picked into Trump's cabinet, who gets confirmed. Look, this is distressing because Donald Trump claimed to be somebody who was going to end the special interest. He couldn't be bought. He said he was going to make sure that his cabinet wasn't the normal Washington insiders. But as we've seen, he has filled his entire cabinet with Washington insiders. He has filled entire cabinet with CEOs, with the exception of Steve Bannon, although Steve Bannon is the CEO, or was the former CEO of Breitbart, if that makes any difference. He's essentially filled the swamp. You got Steven Schwartzman, CEO of the Blackstone Group, now being Donald Trump's one of Trump's biggest advisors on economic issues. Schwartzman is one of the global financial elite that Donald Trump, of course, had, railed against during the campaign. The swamp. This is more proof, and I don't know how much more proof you need, to be honest with you, because if you haven't figured it out by now that Donald Trump is the swamp, I don't think anything more is going to convince you. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.